Welcome to episode 17 of the Reading Finnegans Wake in 200 Sessions podcast, where we analyze Finnegans Wake by James Joyce 3 pages at a time. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into pages 57 through 60 of Jones Joyce's monumental Finnegans Wake. For you, our curious listener, this isn't just a reading, it's a kind of a shortcut to understanding, maybe. A journey through this fascinating, often bewildering landscape of language and human experience. We're going to try and unpack these pages, pulling out the most important nuggets of knowledge and insight, and explore how Joyce distills these really profound ideas about identity, judgment, collective memory, just packs them into every single word.
Yeah, that's pretty much the mission today, isn't it? We're faced with a challenging, but definitely deeply rewarding section. And we're going to navigate, well, two main currents running through these pages. First, we'll explore the recurring trials and symbolic fate of this central figure, often called HCE, the everyman, this sort of mythical Dubliner. And second, we'll dive into what Joyce sets up as a remarkable plebiscite of public opinion. It's like a linguistic street survey, capturing all these fragmented, often contradictory views of ordinary Dubliners on a notorious local sin in the park. What's truly fascinating here, I think, is how Joyce presents this mosaic of perspectives. It really forces you, the reader, to question the very nature of truth and judgment itself.
Exactly. This deep dive is designed to give you a well-informed understanding without feeling completely overwhelmed. So get ready for some aha moments, hopefully, as we connect the dots and explore the surprising facts hidden in Joyce's dense but dazzling prose. It isn't just about what the words mean, but maybe why they matter and what they reveal about, well, human nature. Let's unpack this. Okay, so we begin our journey with this enduring enigma of HCE and his recurrent trials. This stretches from page 57, line 30, roughly, to 58, line 22. Joyce immediately plunges us into this pervasive sense of constant cyclical judgment surrounding HCE. The text opens with, "Yet certes one is," which really emphasizes this inevitability, doesn't it?
It really does. That word certes, it's archaic, meaning certainly, but maybe it also plays on cert as a sure thing. It just hammers home that this isn't some fleeting accusation. It's fundamental. It's an inescapable aspect of his very existence. He is, like, by definition, always on trial.
Always. And this sense of inevitability, it's amplified by the sheer timescale involved, right? The scope of this judgment.
Oh, absolutely. Joyce tells us it happens. Aher the following winter had over the pages of nature's book until Cedarbar Atacleith became Dublina Tertia. I mean, that's a truly vast suite of time. It suggests a timeless, ongoing process across centuries. Aher, from German air or before, plays this deep primordial past.
And overed. That's interesting, not just covered.
Right. It suggests winter literally turned over or covered the pages, maybe even overread them. It hints at a narrative constantly being rewritten by time, like the shifting seasons. The pages of nature's book itself connects HCE's story to these natural cyclical processes, suggesting his judgment is as fundamental as, well, the seasons changing.
So his trials aren't just isolated events. They're woven into the fabric of time itself, from nature cycles right through to the evolution of Dublin.
Exactly. And the names for Dublin really drive that home. You've got Cedarbar Atacleith, which layers Irish Sade for first, German Urbar for arable land, Latin Urbs for city, and the Irish Athcleith, the hurdle ford, Dublin's ancient name. And this transitions to Dublina Tertia, referencing Ptolemy's Ablana for Dublin, but now becoming the third Dublin in Latin. What Joyce does here is show that this judgment isn't confined to one era. It spans from ancient Irish origins through classical naming right up to a modern reestablished city. It's a profound statement. HCE's trials are as old as the city he embodies. It's like a continuous loop through history.
That's a really powerful way to frame his existence. And HCE himself, he's introduced as the shadow of the huge Outlander. That immediately flags him as, well, a foreigner, an outsider, maybe this larger-than-life figure casting a long shadow. But his identity isn't simple, is it? It's incredibly multifaceted and linguistically represented in ways that just deepen the mystery. The text calls him Melodic. We know in Joyce every word is practically a universe. What's he weaving into this one term? What does it tell us right away?
That's where Joyce just, dazzles you. Melodic is this brilliant compression of several languages and concepts. In Latin, you have maledictus, meaning accused. French gives us melodif, which is sickly. Then there's Czech melodic, meaning youngster or male teenager, and even Dutch dick, meaning fat or thick. So, in one fell swoop, HCE isn't just an outsider. He's burdened by accusations, maybe literally ill or perhaps just complex, dense by nature, and even seen as youthful. It's an instant multifaceted character portrait. Almost contradictory, yet totally consistent with this idea of a figure whose identity is constantly under scrutiny and reinterpretation.
Wow. So just one word gives us accused, sickly, youngster, and fat. It's remarkable how it can carry so much weight and project such a fragmented image. Makes him almost a caricature, but deeply human, too.
Precisely. And this linguistic density, it just keeps going. We get multivoltus, straight from Latin multivoltus, meaning many faces. That unequivocally tells us HCE is protein, ever-changing, perceived differently by everyone. He literally presents a multitude of identities. And then magnoporous, another really rich, layered term. From Latin magnipare, very much, it can also imply operating in a grand manner, hinting at his significant, maybe overwhelming presence. And we probably shouldn't forget the connection to magnum opus, right? Suggesting he himself is a great work, maybe the central monumental character in the whole grand narrative of the wake itself.
So Joyce isn't just playing with words here. He's showing us that our understanding of a person, especially a public figure, it's never singular. It's this constant, shifting linguistic construction.
Yeah.
Every accusation, every trait, every role is layered and can be interpreted in conflicting ways. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it truly mean for a figure to be perpetually on trial in so many ways across such vast time periods and with such a complex, shifting identity? How does this reflect our own society's tendencies? Constantly judging public figures or even each other across different contexts and time.
A powerful mirror, definitely. Think about how easily a public persona can become this malleable narrative in our own age, not some fixed truth. Every bit of information, every rumor, every social media comment adds to that layering, forming this mosaic of perceptions that may or may not line up with reality. Joyce shows us this isn't just a modern thing, it's an enduring human impulse to scrutinize and evaluate. HCE is testament to the fact that once you're a public figure, your identity becomes this collective construction, a constant process of judgment.
That's a powerful observation. And if HCE's identity is this swirling vortex of accusation, where exactly are all these judgments happening? Joyce shows us it's not just a single courtroom. It's this sprawling, almost theatrical landscape of Dublin itself. He presents such a striking contrast of locations where HCE is tried, showing us justice Dublin style. It ranges from very formal settings to the most intimate, even fashionable spaces. It illustrates how thoroughly judgment just permeates everything.
Absolutely. He moves from the overtly official to the secretly whispered. We hear of trials in the Manor Hall and for a rota of tribunals. A rota usually means a list of people acting in turn, but specifically here it alludes to the Supreme Judicial Court of the Roman Catholic Church. So that's formal institutional judgment, a clear official process. But then, boom, he jumps to informal, clandestine spaces like the Thieves' Kitchen, which is slang for law courts, suggesting this underground or even criminal adjudication, a shadowy, illicit kind of justice.
And it gets even more intimate, doesn't it? From there, we go to mid-pillow talk and shithouse chat, pillow talk, intimate conversations in bed, and Joyce even references the Tain Bo Cuanya, the Irish legend that starts with just such a conversation. And shithouse chat combines chit-chat, light conversation, with shithouse, a pretty or outhouse. It brilliantly highlights how private whispers and public rumors serve as these pervasive forms of trial. It shows that no space, no matter how personal or mundane, is really immune from the court of public opinion. Your reputation's being decided even in the most casual chats.
And judgment extends even to Dublin's most fashionable public spots. The text mentions on Marlborough Green and through Molesworth Fields. Marlborough Green was this 18th century northern Dublin resort, a fashionable promenade, bowling greens, entertainment. Molesworth Fields down south became fashionable after Leinster House was built there. This just shows how society's judgment permeates all aspects of life, from high society to low gossip, from formal courts to the very streets people stroll along. It's this constant hum of societal evaluation.
And what's really thought-provoking is the contrasting legal fates HCE experiences within this multifaceted landscape. Joyce presents two extreme forms of justice that couldn't be more different. On one hand, he's sentenced pro, tried with Jedburgh justice. What exactly is that?
Jedburgh justice. It refers to this brutal summary condemnation where punishment comes first and the trial afterwards. Essentially, lynch law. Or, as Joyce noted, shoot, then try. It speaks to a swift, often unfair condemnation, a verdict reached before the evidence is even properly heard. It's justice by mob rule, really, by instinct and prejudice.
So condemn first, then maybe a show trial. But then on the flip side, he's acquitted con testimony with benefit of clergy. That clashes sharply with the Jeddart justice.
Oh, completely. Benefit of clergy was this archaic privilege. Originally, it exempted clergymen from secular court trials, but later it got extended to anyone who could read. It effectively became a benefit of scholarship. This highlights a really unfair system where status, education, or even just literacy could grant immunity. It let certain people escape the harsh justice that others faced.
Right.
So this dual presentation of justice, brutal immediacy versus privileged exemption, it raises a big question. What kind of society is Joyce depicting where such contradictory forms of justice coexist? And how does this mirror human tendencies to apply different standards based on perceived status or circumstances? It paints a picture of a deeply flawed yet eerily familiar judicial and social landscape where the rules seem to bend for some and just snap for others. Makes you wonder how many contemporary figures might experience a similar split, where their fate is determined not just by actions, but by social standing or connections.
That's a powerful and, depressingly timeless observation. Moving beyond the judicial, Joyce introduces HCE as the sort of archetypal sacrifice, a divine king figure. The text tells us his Thingmote have undone him and his mad thing has done him man.
Yeah.
That phrase Thingmote, what's the connection there?
Well, Thingmote immediately connects to Thingmote, which is the Viking parliament in Dublin, a public assembly place. It also links to the Scottish Mod, a Gaelic festival or assembly. This brings to mind the idea of public assembly and judgment, whether official or unofficial. And done him in, that's pretty straightforward slang for killed or injured or ruined. It clearly implies a public downfall, a public undoing.
And his legacy seems vast. His beneficiaries are legion in the part he created. They number up his years.
Yeah, legion there really evokes Mark 5.9, my name is legion, for we are many. It suggests this vast, multifaceted presence of followers, or maybe just those who benefit from his part. This part he created feels theatrical, doesn't it? Like an actor originating a role that others then play. It implies a lasting legacy that outlives the individual, and they number up his years could mean his days are numbered, sure. Or, conversely, that his beneficiaries equal the number of years he lived, underscoring his pervasive, almost foundational influence.
Then we get this really interesting metaphor. Great Wheel Dunlop the name was on him. Behung, all we are his bicycles. Dunlop obviously makes you think of John Boyd Dunlop, the pneumatic tire inventor. But also Big Wheel, right? An important person.
Right, and maybe even the Great Wheel, that famous Ferris wheel at Blackpool, a symbol of cyclical motion, public spectacle. And behung plays on behold, but also be hanged. His bicycles are simultaneously bicycles linking back to Dunlop's tires and possibly Isaac from Abraham. It suggests HCE as this foundational figure others descend from. But he's also both praised and condemned. It's a complex image, a source of creation and progress, yet celebrated and scrutinized, ultimately destined for a fall.
And what's really potent here is the imagery of ritualistic dismemberment and glorification, this central theme from ancient mythology that Joyce just masterfully resurrects.
Absolutely. As holiday in his house, so was he priest and king to that. Ulvi came, envy saw, Ivy conquered. The idea of being king and priest in his own house echoes Blake and Dante mastery over oneself, sacred authority. Holiday evokes Christmas, with holly, ivy, mistletoe, symbols of celebration, ancient winter rituals. But then Ulvi came, envy saw, Ivy conquered. That's a brilliant twisted play on Caesar's Veni, Vidi, Vici.
How so?
Well, it's infused with this darker, more primitive energy. Ulvi incorporates Danish ulv, wolf, and Latin ulv, sedge, a type of grass. Ivy is often linked to Parnell's death anniversary in Ireland. So it suggests a conquest, but one driven by primal envy, wildness, maybe political opportunism. It turns a triumphal phrase into something far more ambiguous, much darker.
And then the central image of sacrifice that really drives this home. They have waved his green boughs o'er him as they have torn him limb from limb.
Exactly. Green boughs connect to Fraser's The Golden Bough, that huge study of the ritual murder of a divine king, and Aeneas getting mistletoe before the underworld. It also brings to mind Ivy Day for Parnell and palm leaves for Christ's entry into Jerusalem. It signifies initial worship, glorification, the ecstatic elevation of a hero or a deity.
But it turns horrific so quickly.
Instantly. Torn him limb from lamb refers to the brutal dismemberment of Osiris in the Egyptian myth, or the Bogue, that Zurich winter effigy they burn in spring. And of course, very poignantly, the sacrificial lamb of Passover or Christ. It depicts this brutal ritualistic sacrifice following glorification, a pattern of elevation followed by violent downfall.
This cycle of worship and sacrifice is profound, and it feels like such a timeless pattern of how societies behave. When you connect this to the bigger picture, how do these ancient sacrificial motifs resonate today? With modern narratives of public figures who are elevated and then dramatically brought down, even canceled, often very publicly and brutally.
It suggests our contemporary narratives of rise and fall, hero and villain, are deeply rooted in these ancient archetypes. We still seem to crave and often create our own divine kings, and then we participate, maybe symbolically, in their dismemberment. It's like we haven't moved that far from those ancient rituals.
It truly feels that way sometimes. Following the sacrificial narrative, we then hear this chorus of lamentations and celebration, the immediate aftermath of HCE's downfall. His suffering is intense. For his muridification and expiration and damnation and annihilation. Wow, what a mouthful. Each word layered right.
Oh, absolutely. Joyce uses these terms not just for their main meanings, but for all their echoes. Mortification suggests this numbing of faculties, a spiritual death. Expiration is death, sure, but with that subtle hint of uxor for wife, maybe linking his demise to a female figure. Damnation, condemnation to eternal punishment, annihilation, destruction of soul and body. But what makes them truly Joycian is that all four end in egulation, combining phonetically with ululation, that wailing or lamentation sound. So his downfall isn't just personal suffering, it's a public outcry of grief and despair.
And the sounds of anguish are palpable, with schreis and grida, die profound suspirs.
Yeah, Schrei is German for cry or shout. Grida, Italian for cries or shouts. Sucis is French for sighs, but it also strongly evokes de profundis, Latin for out of the depths, from Psalm 130, traditionally said at wakes. It also calls to mind Oscar Wilde's De Profundis from Prison and De Quincey's Suspiria de Profundis, Sighs from the Depths. It evokes this profound, almost hellish despair. Reminiscent of the sighing and gnashing of teeth associated with hell, even the belief that Jesus descended into hell. It's an almost cosmic lament.
Yet, despite all this sorrow and anguish, there's this popular response that feels almost celebratory, a kind of carnival atmosphere bubbling up.
Right. Steady Sylvans, Mannequin's pause. Longtongue's breech has fallen down, but Grania's breeds abroad. Mannequins brings to mind the mannequin peas, that statue in Brussels of the urinating child. Maybe a cheeky nod to the sin in the park we'll hear more about. Longtongue's breech has fallen down is clearly referencing London Bridge is falling down. Contrasted with Grania's spreads abroad, alluding to Grain, the legendary Irish figure whose spread or influence is abroad, but maybe also spreading the board for a feast. Perhaps at Christmas, it's this mix of nursery rhymes, suggestive imagery, folk legend, turning sorrow into something almost festive.
And this convivial morning continues with, Adaste fideliones and feel the flusher's balls, for the total of your flouts is not fit to fan his fettle.
Yeah, that blends Adest Fideles, O come all ye faithful, the Christmas carol, with fedaling ones. Flucher's balls combines German flucher, one who curses, with balls, a shout or slang for brandy or even testicles. Flouts means mockery, jeers, but sounds like flutes and maybe penises. The idea seems to be that public mockery, even sexual taunts, aren't enough to affect his fettle, his fine state or good form. It implies resilience, indifference to public opinion, maybe even a crude celebration of it. Like no matter how much you mock him, you can't really diminish him.
And it all culminates in this massive party, a proper wake.
And of course, all chimed in with the eatmost bovialities, swiping rums and bones and sherries and ciders and negus and citronades too. Eatmost boviality, that's a great pun on utmost joviality, from the song Fill the Fluter's Ball. And bovine, like cows, eating. Suggests this animalistic, hearty celebration. Bouvant is French, let us drink. They're swiping, drinking in one gulp. Strongers, strong alcoholic drinks. The list rums, wines, bones, sherries, ciders, negus, hot port, citronades. It's reminiscent of those incredibly rich ingredients in Miss Fogarty's Christmas cake, or Miss Hooligan's Christmas cake, which, as the song goes, would kill a man twice after taking a slice.
This mix of lament and revelry is just classic Joyce, isn't it? It suggests that traditional feast of primordial Finnegans wake, this collective processing of loss where even suffering becomes a communal event. It's not just a funeral, it's a celebration of life and death. Reflect how societies often deal with public figures turning their downfall into a spectacle that's both mourned and maybe enjoyed. It's a very human response, chaotic and often contradictory.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It highlights our complex relationship with public figures. We might mourn their loss, but there's often this underlying catharsis, even enjoyment in the spectacle. It's a way of collectively processing societal anxieties, shifting power dynamics, much like ancient festivals or public rituals. The tragedy and the carnival just merge.
It absolutely is a very human, chaotic response. And despite all these jostling judgments and mal-recapturable days, these days difficult to recall or maybe misremembered, HC's unforgettable tree shade looms up. He's described as human, erring, and condonable, echoing Pope's famous line, "To err is human, to forgive divine." This suggests that even in his disgraced state, there's an element of excusability, forgivableness about him, a recognition of his flawed humanity. He's not entirely condemned, is he?
No, not entirely. And time and remembrance play this crucial role in his lingering presence. Ehu, for Gases, combines the Latin ehu, fugaces labuntur ani, the fleeting years are slipping by from Horace, with German verdices, forget it. This juxtaposes the relentless passage of time and the desire to forget with the persistence of memory. It's further complicated by threatening gods, alluding to Threne, Songs of Lamentation, but also maybe German trennen to separate, and Danish Trine is good, threefold god, highlighting separation, lamentation, and this enduring, almost divine presence. His figure endures almost outside linear time.
What's truly fascinating here is the crucial image that encapsulates this lasting, almost frozen presence. A physical exposure, a photograph in the National Gallery. It's described as a more than lifelike monument where Earwicker is pictured seated, frozen for all time in his clerical garb. The National Gallery in London, often mocked as the National Cruet Stand, and its adjacent National Portrait Gallery holds portraits of notables, including Lewis Carroll and Joyce himself. Adds another layer of self-referential irony. This photograph isn't just a picture, it's a memorial, an almost mythological representation that defies his expiration.
And the details of this portrait are incredibly poignant, aren't they? Imbued with this sense of melancholic grandeur, he's gowned about in clerical habit, watching the bland sun slide slowly into the land beyond the edge of the world, a telling tear corrugating a tired cheek. Bland here could mean soft or mild, maybe hinting at Latin sol blandus, for a pleasant sun, suggests a gentle passing, a quiet fade. The telling tear corrugating a tired cheek evokes maudlin, tearful sentimentality, links to Mary Magdalene, often depicted as a harlot restored through repentance. His limp hand holds a farewell note of a tiny Victorian Elise. This directly identifies him with Charles Lutwidge Dodgson and Lewis Carroll, musing on his muse Alice, or perhaps Jonathan Swift musing on his beloved Vanessa or Esther Johnson. It blurs the lines between reality, literature, identity, giving HCE this truly mythical, enduring quality, forever enshrined in art and memory.
This permanent, almost mythical presence of HCE, even as a tree shade or a wax figure, it really challenges us to consider how collective memory, public perception, even art, preserve or distort the image of a person long after their literal expiration. Makes you think about how our own historical figures are remembered, often through these curated images and narratives, rather than the messy reality of their lives. It's about the stories we tell, the images we create, and how they shape our understanding of individuals across time, often creating something larger than life, a kind of cultural monument. Okay, let's shift gears entirely now. We've seen HCE as this monumental, perpetually judged figure, but how do ordinary people, the man in the street, weigh in on his story, particularly on that infamous sin in the park? We're moving into the plebiscite of public opinion, from page 58, line 23, roughly, to 60, line 3. This section acts as a plebiscite, a direct vote or expression of public opinion about the notorious sin in the park. It's presented as a series of street interviews from a sample cross-section of Dubliners, all showing that HCE was the talk of the town.
That's a crucial point. And Joyce sets the scene for this collective outpouring with this flurry of sounds and commands. Tap and pat and tap it again. Fire first shot. Missy is a refusaliers. Ping pong for Saxon Ludi. Tap and pat and tap it again suggests this rhythmic drum beat, maybe a call to attention, maybe even French slang, tapper, chatterbox, gossip. Fire first shot refers to dueling or weak poteen, and fusiliers, soldiers. It also echoes the Battle of Fontenoy. Fire first, English gentlemen. What's Joyce doing here beyond just creating noise?
That's a great question. It's not just noise, is it? It's a deliberate setup. This chaotic opening really throws us into the fray.
Yeah, exactly. It's designed to immediately immerse us in the swirling, fragmented public discourse. Fire first shot instantly evokes conflict, maybe intoxication, hinting at the messy nature of public opinion. For Saxon Ludi, brings in the Saxons English, Welsh, Scottish, hinting at conquest or conflict, linking local gossip to broader historical struggles. But crucially, it also ties into Zexaloiten, that Zurich Spring Festival where they burn the Berg effigy. This signifies a public spectacle, a ritual expulsion, sets a chaotic, almost game-like atmosphere, preparing us for a cacophony of voices and a public reckoning. It's an announcement, a call to witness a spectacle of collective judgment.
So we're not just getting opinions, we're getting a public trial, a performance. Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, as we hear directly from the man in the street, or at least Joyce's brilliant rendering of them. The first voices we hear are pretty unified. The soldiers' consensus, and their verdict is clear. It was the woman, Joyce introduces them. 3 Tomics, soldiers free, Cockaleek and a Capapee of the Coldstream Guards were walking in, pardonnez, je vous en prie, Montgomery Street. Tell us about these soldiers. What makes their perspective significant?
Well, these are Tomics, referencing Kipling's Soldiers 3 and the song We Be Soldiers 3, and obviously Tommy's slang for English soldiers. Cockaleek and Capapee is incredibly dense. You've got Cockaleeky soup, leek being Welsh, leek as slang for pea, nodding to the sin in the park, and Capapee meaning from head to foot, or maybe even KP from Italian. It alludes to urination and full bodily engagement, a crude physical commentary on the alleged sin. And they're walking in Montgomery Street, which was Dublin's notorious brothel district, Monto. That immediately hints at the nature of the sin and the moral context of their observations.
And the narrator keeps interjecting, Pardonnez-leur, je vous en prie, French for excuse them, please, almost asking for leniency for their crude talk. Their opinion is strikingly unified. One voice an opinion in which on either, nodding, all the Finner camps concurred. Je vous en prie,
Yeah, that suggests this widespread, almost unanimous agreement among Finner camps, a military base in Donegal. It implies a collective masculine perspective that absolves HCE by blaming someone else entirely.
And their accusation is stark, isn't it? A primal blame game.
Absolutely. It was the first woman, they said, souped him that fatal Wednesday, Lily Cunningham's, by suggesting him they go in a field. First woman immediately points to Eve, or maybe Lilith, Adam's non-submissive first wife, places blame squarely on a primal female failure, shifting responsibility from HCE. Souped him is slang for got him into trouble. Fatal Wednesday plays on Wednesday, and Arthur Wellesley, Duke of Wellington, may be a fateful historical encounter. And Lily Cunningham's another brilliant composite. Combines Lilith, lilies of the field, Matthew 6.28, and French slang con for female genitalia. It all hints at temptation, seduction, and the specific piss in the park incident. Suggesting him they go in a field is a clear euphemism for an invitation to, well, sexual dalliance. It's a very male-centric, almost biblical excuse.
And we get this terse, almost choked confession from one of them. Rothmod, Eldfar, Ruth Red Stillstand, Rathrack Roth, confessed Private Pat Marchison retro, terse, that's a dense phrase. What's packed into this confession made backwards retro.
It's profoundly fragmented, isn't it? Suggests someone consumed by a mix of ancestral wrath, self-pity, and an internal rage that makes a clear admission impossible. It layers Danish Rothmod Eldfar, wrath against an elder forefather, with Ruth Red Stillstand, pity-driven standstill, or a reading bringing clarity from cessation, and Wrath-racked Wrath, wrath-racked wrath. It's this jumble of emotions, anger at a father figure, paralysis born of pity, self-consuming rage. The parenthetical terse indicates a concise, maybe reluctant summary of this complex confession. Suggests it's an emotional outburst, a raw, almost primal expression, rather than a rational account.
Okay, next up we hear from the actress. She offers a plea filled with glamour, pity, even philosophical insights. A much more nuanced, though maybe theatrical perspective. She's introduced as one of our coming Vauxhall on the boards who is resting for the moment. She has been callined by noted stagey elocutioner Wastepacket Sittons, was interviewed in a Waste and Beauty parlor. Tell us about her in this peculiar setting.
She's clearly steeped in performance. Vauxhall on the boards, a prominent actress on the boards in theater from London's Vauxhall area, a pleasure resort. Interviewed, a great mix of interviewed and feud, hinting at the combative nature of public life or her own rivalries. Her critical reception is woven in. She has been called by a noted stagey elocutioner, a Wastepacket Sittons. She was called by a noted theatrical executioner or critic, not elocutionist, a Wastebasket Sittons. That references Sarah Siddons, the famous 18th century tragic actress. It implies the speaker is a poor imitation, but Wastepacket, a discarded talent. And the interview happens in a waste beauty parlor, combines West End, London's theater district, with beauty parlor, which was slang for a brothel. Hints at her questionable status, blurring lines between art, commerce, and something more illicit.
Her appearance is vividly described, evoking this 18th century fashion scene but intertwined with Dublin landmarks. Looking perhaps even more beauty-flushed in her cherry dairy patoisois, girdle and braces by the half moon and seven stars, russets from the blackamoor's head, amongst the climbing boys at his eagle and child, and over the corn and hay empters at their black and all black.
Yeah, beautifully flushed in her cherry dairy handkerchiefs and patoisoy silk, a strong fabric. A picture of elaborate, slightly faded glamour. Her clothes reference Dublin shops like the Half Moon and Seven Stars, the Blackamoor's Head, Black and All Black. Climbing boys at his Eagle and Child refers to chimney sweepers, often based at pubs called the Eagle and Child. It's this rich tapestry of social observation, placing her firmly in a specific, maybe slightly seedy urban landscape.
And her hope for HCE is quite sympathetic, though expressed with real theatrical flourish, isn't it?
Very much so. Mrs. F.A. set aside, half in stage of whisper to her confidant Glass, while recoupering her cartwheel chapeau. She hoped Sid Arthur would get a Christmas portrait of orange and lemon-sized orchids with holligs and ether from the theater of the incident, as the world had been uncaned. Mrs. F.A. could be censorship or slaying sweet Fanny Adams, nothing at all, adding to her ambiguity. She speaks aside, like an actor, to her confidant Glass, suggesting internal thoughts or a staged performance of intimacy. She's recovering, adjusting her cartwheel chapeau, a wide-brimmed hat, and chapeau combines French chapeau, hat, with maybe capote, condom, adding that suggestive undertone.
So she's hoping for a pardon for HCE delivered with this theatrical, almost flirtatious style. Her request for Sir Arthur Guinness, but also Sid Arthur Buddha, to get a Christmas portrait of orange and lemon-sized orchids means a Christmas pardon and a bouquet of orchids. The theater of the incident plays on the Feast of the Innocents, Childermas, theater, and the incident scene of the crime. Her reasoning, as the world had been unkind, means the world had been unkind to him and he should be removed of Cain, made innocent again, freed from guilt. It's a very dramatic, almost redemptive plea, framed in stage language.
And then come her philosophical musings, wrapped in this theatrical bow. Then, while it is odorous comparissoning to the spraying flowers of his birthday, which was a veritable garden party for the reinworms and the charlatinas and all branches of climatitis, it has been such a wonderful noith entirely, added she, with many regards to Maha's Prangipansies. Odorous comparissoning alludes to Shakespeare's comparisons are odorous. Her spraying flowers of his birthday refers to spring flowers and the fruits ripened at Buddha's birth. She calls it a veritable garden party, for reinworms and earthworms and charlatinas, charlatans, and all branches of climatitis, climates, skin conditions, vine branches, implying a common, maybe seedy gathering for all sorts. Despite this, she declares, it has been such a wonderful night entirely. She ends with Maha's Prangipansies, referencing Maha Prajapati Gautami, Buddha's aunt stepmother, and Sanskrit prajna, wisdom, combined with pansies, flowers symbolizing thoughts. And that final parenthetical tart. It's a sharp, critical comment, maybe from the interviewer or Joyce himself, calling her a loose girl or prostitute.
This testimony, while seemingly sympathetic, is just incredibly rich with theatricality, social commentary, a mix of high-minded philosophy and underlying vulgarity. The speaker's true intent stays ambiguous, leaving us to decide if her compassion is genuine or just another performance. It's a wonderful example of how Joyce uses character voice to reveal as much about the speaker as the subject. Shows us how we all filter events through our own unique lenses and vocabularies.
What stands out here is how Joyce allows for such a range of interpretation within just one character's voice. We see the layers of persona and perception contributing to the overall truth. It reminds us that often the most outwardly expressive compassion can carry a hidden agenda or a cynical undertone, especially with public figures.
Next, we get this highly academic linguistic insight from the entycologist. He frames HCE's identity through the very nature of his name. Prehistoric, embittered to his dictaphone and entycologist, his pronomen is a properismenon. An entycologist, Joyce's own word, a brilliant condensation. What kind of expert is this, and what's this profound linguistic judgment they're making?
It's a truly Joycean creation, isn't it? Suggests an expert in chance encounters in the science of being. Hints at etymologist, word origins, but built from Latin entaius, of existence, and Greek entychia, conversation, and entychon, one met by chance. So maybe a conversationalist met by chance, skilled in the science of being. But it also subtly suggests entomologist, insect expert, reflecting this meticulous, almost scientific approach to character like HCE as a specimen. This character delivers an abiter dictum, an incidental remark, into his dictaphone, declaring HCE's very name is a profound linguistic puzzle. His pronomen is a properismenon. Pronomen suggests a propen name, or his proper name, his personal identifier. This, the antipsychologist says, is a properismenon. That's a Greek grammatical term for a word with a circumflex accent on its penultimate syllable. It's a highly academic judgment suggesting HCE's very name, or maybe his identity as an author, is complex, carrying specific nuanced layers of meaning and stress, just like a Greek word.
This dense linguistic observation really reminds us how deeply language shapes identity and understanding in Joyce's world. How even a name can be a properismenon, a word with layers of meaning and stress. It's testament to how every detail, even a seemingly simple name, is infused with significance in the wake. Makes you consider how our own names, or the labels we attach to others, carry unspoken burdens, complex connotations, influencing how we're perceived.
Absolutely. It's a meta-commentary on the power of language itself. Joyce is showing us that a person's identity, especially publicly, is inextricably linked to the words used to describe them. Even a name isn't neutral. It's a loaded vessel of meaning and interpretation.
Okay, following the academic, we hear from the dustman. His perspective is distinctly pragmatic, almost dismissive of all the intellectualizing cemented brick. He's introduced as a dustman knock-named 7 churches in the employ of Messrs. Ackburn, Saltpeter, and Asherborn, prayer makers, Glintalook. A dustman trash collector, but maybe also a violently gesticulating preacher raising dust, adds ironic authority. He's nicknamed 7 churches near Glendalough, linked to St. Kevin, suggesting rootedness and maybe slightly unhinged spirituality.
And the company he works for, Messrs. Ackburn, Saltpeter, and Ashbourne, prayer makers, what a name, plays on ashes to ashes, saltpeter, reborn like a phoenix. Suggests this cycle of destruction and renewal. It also cleverly alludes to gunpowder ingredients, saltpeter and charcoal, with prayer makers twisting prayer makers. So they're involved in both spiritual contemplation and explosive potential, a very Joycean juxtaposition. And Glintalook is Glendalough, suggesting deep roots, but also a fleeting, maybe superficial glance.
And the setting for his interview is equally colorful and distinctly unglamorous. He was asked by the sisterhood the vexed question during his midday collation of lever and buckram, alternatively with stink and kidney pie in a hash house. Asked by the sisterhood the vexed question, that much debated issue. During his midday collation, a light meal, his menu is, well, less than appetizing. Lever and buckram plays on liver and bacon, but suggests leathery liver and stiff-glued bookbinding cloth, buckram, or maybe wild garlic. Then stink and kidney pie is stinking steak and cat pie with a pie of disgust, though hinting at steak and kidney pie. All consumed in a hash house, a cheap eating house, from hash or wash house, with a sly hint of hashish. It's a very earthy, gritty, working-class scene.
And his response, delivered impulsively, just cuts through all the intellectual complexity with this earthy practicality. We have just been propagandering his nullity suit, and what they took out of his ear among my own crush. All our fellows at Odia sages, with Eritar Calaman, he's a cemented brick, bucket all. Propagandering combines propaganda with to take a gander. Look at something. Suggests casual discussion, spreading info. They're discussing his nullity suit, declaring a marriage null. What they took out of his ear nods subtly to earwig, one of HCE's epithets, suggesting a common, maybe trivial complaint. The dustman and his crush, crowd or infatuation, concur. All our fellows at Odia sages, with Eritar Calaman, he's a cemented brick, bucket all. Eritar Calaman blends Irish Eritar, plow, a rather calm person, Arata Calaman, Buddha's hermit shelter, King Arthur dying at Kama, but the core is cemented brick, slang for a dependable person, a stout fellow, punctuated with bucket all, colloquial exclamation, maybe even fuck it all.
This response from the dustman is wonderfully earthy, practical, full of wordplay, reflects a common man's perspective. Rough, maybe, but ultimately seeing HCE as fundamentally solid, dependable despite the nullity suit. It's a grounded, almost dismissive take on the scandal. Suggests that for the working man, HCE's fundamental character outweighs any salacious details. Like, despite the fuss, the core man's reliable.
It highlights a kind of enduring loyalty, or at least pragmatism, from the common people toward the figure they see as integral to their world, regardless of his personal flaws. The scandal's just noise to them. The man himself is a cemented brick.
Our next witness is the taxi cab driver. He offers a distinct perspective contrasting private life with public honors. Introduced as a more nor usually sober car driver who was jauntily hosing his runabout, Ginger Jane took a strong view. A taxicab driver, more than usually sober, happily, jauntingly watering, hosing his small car, Ginger Jane, linked to Jane Welsh Carlyle. He took a strong view, a phrase magistrates use in sentencing, implies a firm, decided opinion. There's a sense of authority in his casual pronouncement, even if he's just a taxi driver.
And this is what he told the rewrite men, those newspaper reporters who rewrite copy. Laurie hosed her as he talked, and this is what he told rewrite men. Ire Waker is just a plain pink joint reformee in private life, but folks all have it by Bohemian's laws he has parliamentary honors. Laurie hosed her as he talked, adds this slightly crude, intimate detail. Earwaker is another version of HCE's name, Earwaker. The driver sees him as just a plain pink joint reformee. Plain bloke, but pink. Secret or moderately radical politically. A reformer. Suggests this discrepancy between perceived private character and public standing. The key distinction. Folks all have it by Bohemian's laws he has parliamentary honors. Brehon law, the ancient Irish legal system, implies this deeply ingrained public opinion, an ancient unwritten code. This popular belief holds HCC has parliamentary honors or privilege, despite his private life. Suggests a kind of political immunity or social acceptance.
This really highlights that familiar dilemma, doesn't it? The contrast between a public figure's perceived private faults and their public standing or political immunity raises an important question about how societies reconcile personal failings of leaders with their public roles and privileges. We see this constantly, right? Where someone's public service seems to grant them a different kind of judgment for their private life.
Absolutely. It's a timeless tension between public responsibility and private conduct. Joyce captures how deeply ingrained this dichotomy is in the public consciousness, where a collective Brehon law can grant a form of immunity transcending personal scandal. It's about the narratives we choose to believe, which aspects of a person we prioritize.
Now, for some culinary wisdom, we hear from the chef whose analogy of omelets and broken eggs delivers this profound, almost cynical truth. Escoffier said, "Luigi's, you know that man's brilliant savouring. Ma foi, you wish to have some omelette, yes, lady. Good, mein Leber. Your hag, he must break himself. See, I crack, so he sit in the pal unbedimmt." Who is this chef? What wisdom does he offer?
He's a figure of gastronomic authority. Escoffier blends iced coffee and Ghost d'Escoffier, the famous French chef, works at Luigi's, a fashionable London restaurant. He's a brilliant savouron, referencing Brillat Savarin, author of The Physiology of Taste, but with that hint of French, ça vaut rien, it's worth nothing, adding cynicism or humor. Greets the customer, mon foie, French, my liver, a common complaint, but also ma foi, really. Ask if you wish to have some homelet, yes, lady. Homelet, punning in Heine home, and omelet continues, good, my liver. German, my liver, or mein lieber Gott, my dear God. This all leads to the punchline.
And the punchline is, your hag, he must break himself. See, I crack, so he sit in the pole unbedimmt. Heg is egg, maybe evoking Humpty Dumpty, who had that great fall, and here it's HCE.
Right, it's a direct reference to the proverb, you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs. It implies that for any creation or outcome there must be sacrifice, destruction. Pole is French, frying pan, maybe poulet, chicken. Unbedimmt is German absolutely unconditionally, but also suggests, and be damned.
This is a classic example of Joyce's wit, using a culinary analogy to deliver this profound, almost cynical truth about consequence and necessity. Suggests HCE's downfall, or the sin, is just a necessary broken egg in making some larger, inevitable omelet. It's fatalistic. Some things must be destroyed for something new, and you can't change that. Strips away the moralizing, reduces it to a simple, universal truth.
It really does. Very pragmatic in its own way.
Next up, we have the perspiring tennis player. His frustration highlights the blurred lines between information and trespass. A perspirer, over 60, who is keeping up his tennises, panted he knew a hard to collect infamatios, but a diff pair flannels climb wall and trespassing on doorbell. Who is this breathless informant? What distinction is he drawing?
He's an older man, perspiring, breathing hard, keeping up his tennises, either still playing tennis or maybe keeping up his pretenses or tenses. His breathless speech means he knew how hard 'twas to collect information, or calumny, the words forced out between pants. He's struggling physically and maybe morally with gathering potentially damaging information.
But then he draws this sharp distinction. But a diff pair flannels climb wall and trespassing on doorbell.
Right. Diff pair flannels plays on different pair of trousers. That idiom for that is another affair. Tennis outfits were traditionally flannels. He's distinguishing between just gathering info and the unethical, intrusive actions of climbing walls, trespassing, maybe referencing sensational novels like Lady Audley's Secret, which involved illicit investigation.
This reflects the difficulty of gathering truth, the distinction between gossip and evidence, the ethical boundaries of investigation, challenges the listener. Where's the line between legitimate inquiry and intrusive surveillance? Relevant for any public figure today. Implies that digging for facts might be hard, but violating privacy is a whole different ballgame.
Exactly. A very modern-feeling concern, actually.
Finally, we hear from the barmaid. Her compassion adds this note of simple human empathy to the chorus of judgments. A railway's barmaid's view, they call her Spilteers Rue, was thus expressed to sympathizers of the Dole line Death Avenue, anent those objects of her pity-prompted ministrants, to wet man and his siphon. Ihem, it is ever too.
Her name, Spilteers Rue, suggests sorrow, regret, maybe Ruth, or even Beatrice, common barmaid name. Speaking to sympathizers of the Dole line, those experiencing hardship, maybe on Death Avenue, 11th Ave, NYC, once called that due to railway tracks, evokes hardship, mortality, daily struggles. She speaks anent, concerning those objects of her pity-prompted ministrants, those she serves with pity. Her fragmented thought, to wet man in his siphon, ahem, it is ever too, is full of layers. To wet, maybe to wit, namely, or to drink. Man in his siphon, suggestive image, man and penis may be linked to her work, or public urination. Ahem, Latin ha, or what, and it is ever too points to the proverb, it's too late to shut the stable door, suggesting inevitability, regret.
Her ultimate verdict implies simple human compassion. It would be a scarlet shame to jail him, referencing a source about a real potential death sentence. Suggests this perhaps because him being an orphan and all that, no matter what those two prostitutes claimed he did. It introduces this note of simple human compassion and fatalism, suggests circumstances or past actions made the current situation unavoidable, regardless of the details of the sin or accusations. It's a view prioritizing mercy over strict justice, a human touch in a sea of judgment.
Her perspective is such a crucial counterpoint to the earlier, more cynical or accusatory voices. Reminds us that behind the grand narratives and linguistic games, there's this human element of pity and understanding, a recognition of vulnerability, circumstance. It's a poignant end to this parade of opinions, suggesting that for some, the scandal is less about condemnation, more about a quiet sense of tragic inevitability.
What an incredible journey through just these 3 pages. We've seen HCE as this figure constantly on trial, from the grandest halls of justice to the most intimate pillow talk, a symbolic sacrifice, both glorified and torn limb from limb. And then we witness this bustling plebiscite where everyone from soldiers to actresses, dustmen to chefs, taxi drivers, barmaids weighed in with their fragmented, often contradictory opinions.
Indeed. These pages really underscore how truth, particularly about a complex figure or event, is rarely singular, is it? It's a mosaic built from diverse perspectives, cultural references, linguistic play. Joyce doesn't give us a definitive answer, but rather the full spectrum of human judgment, from legalistic to compassionate, cynical to academic. You're left not with the simple fact, but with a richer, more nuanced understanding of how narratives get constructed, how our collective reality is often a composite of countless subjective viewpoints.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener?
Well, it's a powerful reminder, I think, that in a world awash with information and conflicting narratives, forming an informed opinion means sifting through layers of unfacts and irreparable testimony, as Joyce might put it. Joyce challenges us to be both judges and sympathetic observers, to piece together truth from myriad viewpoints, and to recognize that every perspective carries its own baggage and biases. It encourages us to approach complex situations with curiosity, rather than just immediate judgment.
And this raises, I think, an important question. How do we engage with conflicting narratives in our own lives? What responsibility do we have to understand the full, complex picture, the multiple faces, the contradictory reports, the underlying human motivations before we pass judgment? How do we build our own internal plebiscite of understanding?
That's a truly provocative thought to mull over until our next deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us on this intellectual adventure, and don't forget to keep exploring.